Mark Cavalla-Cole, FDA. Oh, yeah, there. Sorry.
Good morning. I'm Mark Cavalla-Cole. I'm a lead medical officer in the Division of Special Pathogen and Transplant Products at FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research and the Office of New Drugs. I'd like to briefly update you on two activities at FDA that may be of interest to the committee and may have some impact on chronic fatigue syndrome. I will. Thank you. Well, the first item I'd like to speak about is the FDA's task force on transparency. There is a link about this task force on the Chronic Fatigue Syndrome Advisory Committee's website. On June 2nd, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced the formation of a task force to develop recommendations for enhancing the transparency of the agency's operations and decision-making process. The task force is chaired by the Principal Deputy Commissioner, Joshua Sharfstein, and will include also Center Directors, Associate Commissioner for Regulatory Affairs, the Chief Scientist, and the Chief Counsel. This transparency task force will seek public input on issues related to transparency, recommend ways that the agency can better explain its operations compatible with the appropriate protection of confidential information. That will also identify information that the FDA should provide about specific agency operations and activities, including enforcement actions and product approvals. It will identify problems and barriers, both internal and external, to providing useful and understandable information about FDA activities and decision-making to the public. It will also identify appropriate tools and new technologies for informing the public. It will also recommend changes to the FDA's current operations, including internal policies and guidances to improve the agency's ability to provide information to the public in a timely and effective manner. And finally, it will also recommend legislative and regulatory changes, if appropriate, to improve the FDA's ability to provide information to the public, and submit a written report to the Commissioner on the Transparency Task Force findings and recommendations. This should be coming soon. A first meeting was held on June 24th of this year, and this meeting was held to solicit input from interested persons on ways the agency could make useful and understandable information about the FDA activities and decision-making more readily available to the public in a timely manner and a user-friendly format. Information on that meeting, on its agenda, and its proceedings are available through the link that's provided at the Chronic Fatigue Syndrome Advisory Committee's website. On November 3rd, very soon, there will also be a second public meeting on transparency. And this will be held to receive detailed and in-depth comments on three specific issues related to the transparency at FDA. The topics to be covered are: 1, early communication about emerging safety issues concerning FDA-regulated products; 2, disclosure of information about product applications that are abandoned, which means that no work is being done or will be undertaken to have the application approved or withdrawn by the applicant before approval; and 3, communication of agency decisions about pending product applications. I urge you to follow the activities of this task force and as we progress and find new ways of making our information more available to the public. The last topic, second topic that I'd like to speak about is patient-reported outcomes. Patient-reported outcomes have been really an interest to the agency in clinical trials for some time now, and a draft guidance was published over a year ago that has received quite a number of public comments. The final guidance has now been drafted and is receiving its levels of clearance, and I do hope that by the next meeting there will be something that will be able to speak more about this. This, I think, is a very important issue for clinical trials in chronic fatigue syndrome. And also, I would like to mention that there's a office within the Office of New Drugs that is specialized in reviewing applications that contain tools to measure patient-reported outcomes, which would be of benefit in clinical trials, including clinical trials for chronic fatigue syndrome. I thank you for your attention, and at this point, if I would entertain any questions from the committee.
I'll go this way, Nancy, and then we'll go this way.
Mark, two questions. Oops. Two questions. The first, in the 3 drugs approved for fibromyalgia, Lyrica, Cymbalta, Savella. Is there any efforts by the FDA to do the stage 4, if you would, studies that would tell us if they're also efficacious in people with comorbid chronic fatigue syndrome?
Well, that really, I think you're referring to, okay, post-marketing studies with these products.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, initiation of upon the approval of these products, there were certainly a list of post-marketing commitments that were made by the applicants for each one of these products with the agency. I think what you're referring to is to something else, which probably has to do with continued drug development on the part of the applicant or the sponsor for these products. And that.
What I'm really asking is, our patients are tremendously drug sensitive. They have far more drug reactions than in what is listed, say, in the approvals. Is there some way to be keeping track of these drugs as they are being used in the chronic fatigue population for adverse outcomes?
There's no specific mechanism by diagnosis to report safety, but new products are still required to be monitored, and the owners of the new drug applications are required to report safety issues with their products. This includes, but is not limited to, submitting periodic reports. The frequencies of these are more frequent early on after the launch of the product, but these continue through the lifetime of the product.
You're going to ask about Ampligen?
And then
Mark, in public testimony, we had an individual who has been in our audience and has testified, who was actually pretty able, was able to kind of function at a pretty high level. And over the last year, she's now in a wheelchair. She's actually in the audience right now. And I think kind of seeing the changes in her functioning over this kind of period of time when she was both on Ampligen and then off Ampligen is really remarkable. That's just one person, and I'm certain that there's other people out there who probably seem to benefit from this drug. Given that we don't have any drugs at this point that are available through the FDA, I'm wondering if you can comment on just the incredible length of time that has gone on for the approval process for Ampligen, and if you can give us any sense of when some ultimate judgment will be made. And I think that this is something that our committee needs to know.
I think until there are changes in legislation and regulation, I'm unable to comment on the status of an application that is pending under review at the FDA. Your concerns about the application you're citing are well heard, and there are similar concerns for other applications as they come in through the agency. We are committed to review all applications as quickly as possible, as quickly as the materials that are been submitted to us will allow us, and certainly have benefited from increases in the amount of resources that we do have to review these applications. I cannot comment on the specifics of this particular one, unfortunately, at this time. One of the reasons why I did speak about the FDA's Transparency Task Force is that it is recognized that this is an area where we would like to receive public comment on how we could improve our ability to comment on pending applications. And as I noted, that was one of the 3 topics that will be discussed publicly at the meeting on November 3rd.